This podcast is brought to you by Pineapple Lady. An ode to Pineapple Lady. Pineapple Lady, such a curious sight, immortalized in black and white in a thrift shop photo frame that's now treasured lore among those who can only guess what you were for. With thick ankle socks and stylish short pants, a white t-shirt and shoes made to dance, and a nice nest of hair, practical, heaven knows, accented by stoner shades perched on your nose. But of course, the true centerpiece of the scene is the pineapple, oh so golden and green, or, well, really gray on gray, as this photo dates from decades away. That fruity friend carefully cupped in your palms and smiling with every one of its fronds. Pineapple Lady, join our family tree. Or, so you fit more comfortably, we'll make it a family shrub thingamabob, like the one that produced your Hawaiian heartthrob. O guardian of the tropical treat, you complexity of sour and sweet. O Duchess of the prickly prince, the fruit's favored wrinkly rye mistress. O bearer of the apple of pine, be our grandma number 3. That's all we ask. We'll take care of the paperwork. Just fill our days with your sunshine.
Welcome to Little, Middle, and Biggle. I'm your middle brother, Joshua.
I'm your little brother, Andrew.
And I'm your biggle brother, Noah.
And we are the ones who will try our best to answer the little, middle, and biggle questions we all have in life. So starting us off is me with a little question. This has been something that's been rattling around with my brain for longer than I think should any thought rattle, and it is a would you rather question, taking us back to 7th grade, which is very appropriate given what the would you rather question is. Would you rather be able to time travel to any point in your life, keeping your current mind but inhabiting the body of that point in your life? Or would you rather just be able to time travel whenever but always be in whatever body you were and mind that you were in when you left the time travel? So, you guys have seen the movie About Time, right?
Yes.
Nope.
Well, that helps 50% of the audience. So, About Time, the guy is able to, have as many do-overs as he wants in his life. And he always is conscious of the do-overs that he has had. So, if I were to have that as my superpower, I would be able to go back to when I was 5 years old, live my life starting at the point from when I was 5 up until the present day, and I would have all the memories of the current 5-year-old to 23-year-old me that has happened in the intervening time, plus the memories that I would be making as a 5-year-old onwards. So that's option 1. Option 2 is you just get time travel, regular style. And you're always it's not like you get to change your age or anything.
Okay, so basically one of them... Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, that took way longer to explain than I had been expecting. Much more in-depth would you rather question than most. But yeah, the pros of the first one is that you get to retain all your memories, potentially live as many times as you want, have all the do-overs you want, but you're limited to your own lifespan. Pros and cons of the second one is that you get to travel to literally any time, but you don't get the do-overs.
Gotcha.
/ life extension.
I think I'd do do-overs.
Okay. What's your reasoning behind that?
Because then you get everything you want in life.
Oh, Andrew, you've seen the movie About Time. You know this is not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Noah?
Man. I think my gut instinct is to do... I've not seen the movie. My gut instinct is to do the do-overs one, because I feel like that's something that I imagine / fantasize about a lot, which was probably brought on by like just having an undo button in various, games and softwares, and then doing those all day, and then you're like, wait, why can't I just undo that? Like, it would be so nice. But also, you are limited to your lifespan, which is a pretty big limitation. I haven't really thought about that.
Yeah. Andrew, you were about to give some reasoning. What were you about to say?
Yeah, just because, like, I would say 70% of the time that I'm, like, laying in bed after having laid in bed for an hour trying to get to sleep, it is due to being like, well, you could have just done this.
Like in what kind of situations? Like social situations?
Like social situations. Yeah, mostly social situations.
That's interesting.
I think for me, it's more like thinking forward with it. It's like if I could just, have infinite do-overs, then you can, whenever you are confronted by a situation, you don't have to be like, oh man, like I have to do this right the first time because it's my only chance. And you can just do it over and over and over. I mean, heck, like if I was working in the ER and could do that, that'd be awesome. Because it'd be like, maybe this person has this. Whoops, nope, that was wrong. Rewind. Maybe this is what's going on.
That's really interesting. I'd never thought about that in the forward direction. But, yeah. Okay, so counter-argument is if you're also taking, like, the very magnanimous healthcare, getting to help people...
Well, I mean, there'd be lots of just fun things, obviously, too, but yeah.
Well, yeah. But, like, I mean, if you could go back in time, you could go back to, like, the medieval times and just be like, guys, germs. And everyone would be like, what? And you would save, like, thousands and thousands of lives.
Maybe, but also, like, I mean, there were, at times, people who were like, guys, germs. Guys, hand washing. And everyone's like, yeah. This guy thinks there's tiny little invisible creatures that get you sick. Obviously, it's the humors.
Let me just go bathe in my chamber pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You could definitely do some good by that too. And then if you could go forward in time, you could figure out all sorts of cool stuff and bring it back. But the other argument for being able to have the do-overs is that it just sounds really fun. So there's that.
Yeah, you could have a conversation with your friend and then know exactly what they're going to say and destroy their argument or something.
Wow, that's kind of cutthroat there, Andrew.
But who wouldn't want to do that? I certainly would. Another thing about traveling to the future or to the past is then it kind of destroys the whole natural progression of humanity, which I think is kind of a cool thing.
Andrew, by the way, is taking lots of humanities-related courses this semester.
I'm taking
in
one.
Case you couldn't tell.
It's just a really good one.
So you may have noticed that I have thus far withheld my answer.
What is your answer?
Because I am like so of a divided mind with this. Because part of me thinks like, yes, oh my gosh, if I could go back to like middle school or even earlier and set myself on a path that did not lead me to like medical school and instead like writing as a career or something. Oh my gosh, that would be incredible. I would so take that chance. But if I have the option, like, guys, swords, I could go back in time and be like a swordsman in the medieval times. And not just that, but like live in a society that legitimately thought magic was real. Oh my gosh. That would be like heaven for me. I don't know if I would even care about like writing and medicine and anything else, I would just be like, yes, I am off on a quest. Get me my bow and arrow and my mighty steed. Dang
Joshua,
it.
you really need to go to Renaissance Fair someday.
I really do. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'm still stuck. What were you saying, Andrew?
I hadn't really considered. Well, because I viewed each like, okay, how can you exploit this? But I didn't really think about how time traveling outside of your lifespan, you could just go and like see what it was like.
Yeah.
Like that would be really cool to be in a ancient Greek city or live during the construction of the railroads or World War II or something. I say cool.
Yeah.
That's a relative term. But, as long
Or you
as
could
you were...
be a samurai in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be like having a holodeck, but
Yes.
you can also die. I would imagine.
I mean, you can die on holodecks. There was an episode of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So Noah, assuming that you did take the travel to any point in the past thing, where would you travel?
Man, that's a tough one. Okay, I have like two ways of thinking of this. One is like the human aspect, in which case I would totally travel to like, medieval times would be really cool to see. And then just other like great civilizations. It'd be really cool to see, that in action. Especially some of the ones that we don't know that much about. But I actually really just all sorts of great civilizations through time just to see what they were all like. That'd be awesome. But on the flip side, it'd be really cool to travel back like really, really far to, like pre-dinosaurs and see what life was like back then whenever, you just like whenever that'd be like the closest we could get to being on an alien world without being there,
Yeah.
Things would be completely different. It's like there would be, plant life would be completely different. Fungi would be completely different. Everything would look crazy different, except for a few really random things that would look the same, which would be crazy to see also. I don't know. That would, if I had to pick one place, I think that's where I would go. But I would want to go all over the place.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Like, have you guys ever seen the giant sloths that used to roam?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
world?
obviously we haven't seen them, but like heard of them yet.
You guys haven't?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be so cool.
Yeah. Also, like the multiple meters long dragonflies, that would be mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or the what are they called? Quetzalcoatl. Is that what it was? The giant Quetzalcoatl, the giantest of the flying things of all time.
Yes.
At least that we know of.
Yes. That is its official title.
Yeah.
It has that printed on a mug that sits on its desk.
Yes.
The giantest of the flying things.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so one extra thought, though, and this isn't something you guys necessarily have to respond to, but just to like, for the thinking, because you will definitely, of course, have to make this decision at some point in your life, hopefully, is that if you got to travel to any time, you would have like no long-term relationships, probably, because you would like spend a year here, spend a year there, and nobody would be able to come with you. But if you got to like relive in your life as many times as possible, you could, depending on how you look at it, have like the longest, deepest relationships ever, or you could have like the most stressful relationships ever because you're trying really hard not to like give away that you know what this person is going to do and become in the future. But yeah, so just added complications as you guys lie awake at night pondering this in the future.
Yeah, that would be interesting. That would totally.
Yeah. Okay, so Noah, will you take us away with the middle question, please?
Sure. My middle question is fairly simple, and I don't honestly know if I have a good answer for it yet.
Great.
But since the tradition so far this episode has been to answer last, I will gladly answer my question last.
Sweet.
But, yeah. My question is, what is, in you guys' opinion, the most important civic duty?
Can we have like a list of civic duties other than like voting and jury duty?
I bet you
Yes,
Andrew
define
knows
those
this better
terms.
than I do because I honestly I feel like he's been in these classes more recently. I can think of, I mean, I was also going to throw in at some point like the difference between, is there like a civic duty versus a civic privilege? You know, like things that you get to do versus things that it's your duty to do, and if there's some overlap. But I mean, you could be voting, you could do, jury duty, you could do things like helping at polling locations, you could do things like, holding an office, you could do, I don't know, help me out here. What else could you do?
What about protest?
Sure, yeah.
Cool.
It's very open. Like, I'm not, trying to have a very limited list here.
Okay. Would you accept the definition of civic duty as doing your part to help the country?
Sure. Yes.
Then I would say the most important civic duty is to do your job well.
Okay, just like whatever that job is.
Whatever your job is, do it well so that, number one, you help out whatever class of people does your job, and number two, so that people have things from your job that are good. Have the products of your job that are good.
That
is a
really interesting way to think of
that. And I am totally grabbing this from Aristotle, just so you know, but so if you're like a doctor, you heal the most people, or if you're a politician, you do the most political good, or if you're like a mechanic, everybody's cars work, and that is helping the country.
Yeah.
Cool. Just like helping things run smoothly. Yeah, okay, so my answer would be similar to that. It would just be, don't be a dork. Just don't create civil unrest. That covers so many bases. And I'll just leave it at that. I won't explain it. I'll just let people take that piece of advice and absorb it into their lives, hopefully. Yeah. Go for it, Noah. Your turn.
Man, you guys have opened up my options a little bit here. I would say of like the generic ones, voting's obviously very important because you are putting your voice out there. But you can also think of other ways that you vote. Like people talk about voting with, where you purchase things from, and voting with your actions and such. But I think if we're going with this broader definition, those are both really good answers. I don't disagree with either of those, and I don't think this is necessarily better if it's as good. But just to have a different one, educating yourself and other people around you, and also making sure that you are, whatever education you are providing to people, the sources that you're using are very, very good. Like,
yeah.
If you're a school teacher, you got to make sure that your sources of whatever you're teaching are up to date and, not biased. If you're a history teacher, that's probably especially hard. If you are like just telling someone, training a new employee or something, then you want to make sure that you give them the best education about how to do their job and what the job entails so that they can, like Andrew was saying, do the best job that they can do. Yeah, and like education is really just like the transfer of information from one individual to another and one generation to another, which is pretty much the foundation of how all of humanity works and why we're not just, swinging sticks at things and being hunter-gatherers anymore. There's no way that in one lifetime we could figure out how to do any of the things that make our modern society work. But over many, many lifetimes, we've built up enough knowledge that, you can just go to school for, 10 years and know an enormous amount more than someone would have, 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. Just increase the net amount of good information people have.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds like a good set. I like that. I like our, conjunction of ideas.
Me
I
too.
think they're all pretty mutually applicable. Don't be a dork, spread information and not misinformation, and do your job well.
Yeah.
I think
also, go ahead.
Noah's is most applicable to the modern day. Joshua's and ours are both pretty universal in terms of time periods.
True. Yeah. I don't think there were a lot of cavemen going around being like, that other caveman group, the way they start fires is wrong. We should have a trade embargo with the other the other group of cavemen.
Do you know you can ride on the backs of giant sloths?
It's true.
It's true. It's really slow, but it works.
Nice. Okay, Andrew, will you take us away with the Biggle question, our philosopher brother?
Yes. So, this morning I just listened to you guys' podcast with Kelly where you discussed risk. Yeah. And so you guys very tangentially brought this up that I am like the far end of the bell curve of risk, and Joshua's the low end, and Noah's kind of in the middle. Yes. So.
Okay, let's reframe that. I'm not the low end of risk. I am the high end of caution. Prudence, shall we say.
Ooh, prudence. Well, okay. Don't make fun of me, because you've already made fun of me. Aristotle said that every virtue and every vice has two ends to it. It's like two ends of a spectrum, right? Which is really pretty much what you guys said. And that for courage is the good of risk, the place you want to be with risk. And on one side of the spectrum, there's rashness, which would be me, apparently. And on the other end is, I don't even remember what word he uses. I guess I could look it up right now, but I'm not going to. It's like
overcaution.
Being a wiener. Yeah. But Aristotle also says between these two virtues or vices, the golden mean, which is where you want to be, is closer to one than the other. So, is the golden mean of courage closer to rashness or wienerness?
Rashness or wienerness. Nice.
Okay. I think that... So that was your question, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in since we are doing, apparently, this episode, question asker answers last, even though we've never done that before, and yeah, we're 18 episodes in.
It works.
Yeah, I would say it depends, which has kind of become my answer for everything these days. Unfortunately, or fortunately.
It's hard for that not to be a good answer to most things.
Yep.
Yeah, especially in medical school. So I would say it depends a lot on who you want to be and how you want to contribute to the society. Like, I guess we were just talking about this, but like if you want to be the president of a very like aggressive top of the world country, then you can say, yeah, I should be closer to the rashness end. If you want to be the president, or I shouldn't say president, leader of like a more progressive instead of aggressive, and sort of we will lead the world by example, not by pushing and pulling the rest of them along, then I think that more towards the conservative end of the Weiner end of the courage spectrum is better. And also on like an individual level, if you want to be like the CEO of NASA, you've probably got to be pretty aggressive. But if you just want to be like I shouldn't say just, if instead you want to be the person who is not very well known, but whom everybody loves because of the small acts of good they do, kind of like our parents. I don't think our parents are famous, but like whenever people do know them, they're like, oh, that person, I love that person because of XYZ. Just like the little acts of good they do. Then I think the, unfortunately, Wiener, that is the name we've called it, end of the spectrum, is the most appropriate. So,
are you calling our parents wieners?
You called them wieners.
Well, no, I don't think that holds up. I don't think mom and dad are inherently not risk takers.
Seriously? Okay. Well, okay. Define risk.
Risk. Okay. The bad end of the courage spectrum. Being courageous to the point of rash decision.
Okay.
Well, I mean, wouldn't you think of risk more as like a part of that spectrum, basically? Like, or not so much a part of that spectrum, but a value that increases for various actions, and the amount of which you are willing to increase as you move towards the rashness end of the spectrum. Because risk seems more like a value than it is like a point on.
I definitely worded. Risk and rash have gotten mixed up in my head since the beginning of this question. Yes, and Joshua asked about risk, and then I was answering about rashness in my head. So, risk, I would say, I would say on either end of the spectrum, you are tending more toward a consequence. And risk is that consequence of being rash. So risk is the consequence of rash decision.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is, okay, I am starting to question things ever so slightly, because, like, depending on your viewpoint, it could be very rash to be very on the less courageous end of the spectrum. Like if you're a world leader, a world power, it can be seen as rash or construed as rash if you're like Norway and you're like, we're just going to we're going to be cool. We're going to be very environmentally conscious and very progressive, but we're not going to force that on anybody, Like, that could be seen as a rash decision, because then what about the rest of the world? Like, how are they going to make the same improvements? And you're just kind of, like, putting it on faith of humanity. So
I think we can't assign this to societies. We have to assign it to individuals.
Mm. Okay.
Although, like, the amount of, I don't know. Okay, I was just thinking, as far as a whole society goes, it is interesting to think about a more rash society versus a more wiener society, since that's our word.
I'm really trying to think of a better word. Oh my gosh!
But
moderate.
Yeah.
But I would think moderate is close to courageous. Moderate in this whole golden mean idea.
Yeah, I think it's got to be wiener.
Yellow-bellied?
Unfortunately, wiener
Is it better to say yellow-bellied? Okay, wiener.
But, it's interesting to think about society on either end of the spectrum, how things turn out for them. Like, there are certainly pros and cons to either one. If as a culture they are way more in one direction or the other. But anyways, that's not what Andrew's going for.
Well, no, it's okay, because that leads into the fact that I think it, of course, depends on circumstances. It's not like you have the spectrum and you place your particular circumstance on it. It's you place the spectrum on your circumstance. Does that make sense? Like you base your... Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay,
we're just
it got
flabbergasted.
very quiet. So...
You want to make sure you weren't just doing a monologue with nobody listening. I mean...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I was worried about last episode's thing. Anyways, instead of, there's okay, I'm gonna go to the Paladero Canyon and go rock climb. Is that stupid or not? You have to say, given that I am a good climber and have all of the right equipment, is it stupid to go climb? In which it would not be rash to go, it would be courageous, and it also, I don't think, would be wienerlicious. Whereas, if you're like, okay, I'm gonna go climb, I don't have any of the right stuff, is that rash or what? Yeah, it's rash.
Should the title of this episode be Rashes and Wieners?
Yes!
Oh, man. Okay, so I don't know if you guys actually know this, but the way that I title all the episodes is from blank to blank, with the first blank being some permutation of the little question, and the last blank being some permutation of the large question. So I could say, from time travel to rashy wieners, or something like that.
Wiener rashness.
Wiener rashes.
To the wiener rash spectrum.
It wasn't.
Yeah, I'll give it some thought.
I'm sure
wiener rash spectrum works.
I'll give
really
it
well.
way too much thought. Actually, I'm already giving it too much thought. Can we move on?
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is that rather than, rashness being absolute, rashness depends on circumstance, which is kind of what Joshua was saying.
Okay. Noah, did you ever even give a definitive answer?
Huh? I don't know if I did.
Yeah, I think you just kind of fox-trotted around it.
This is... I don't even know. This has been quite a... this hasn't been so much like you give an answer, Andrew gives an answer, I give an answer, as we're trying to figure out what is the question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, which I feel like the Biggle question lends itself to a lot, and we should kind of make it the standard that it's a discussion and not a
Well, I mean, there are always discussions, but you're right. It totally lends itself to ending up that way.
Yeah.
I would say, as an individual, oh man. Any way I think of this, I keep thinking of what are the effects on other people? Because if you think of it as effects on other people, if you are, a person who, if something happens to you, it doesn't have a major effect on anyone else, then being rash might be better because you are more likely to, stumble upon new discoveries and, make risky business moves that end up paying off and stuff than if you don't do that, than if you live very cautiously. But if you, are the head of a company, or you have a large amount of family members or friends that are depending on you for, financial support or for care or whatever, then, you have more to lose there. And or I guess not so much you have more to lose, you have more of a negative effects that could happen to other people. I don't know. If it's just totally on your own, like you're not thinking about the effect on anyone else, I think that being on the the golden mean, is that what it is?
Yes.
The golden mean on the riskier side is better, because you are more likely, like we're all going to die at some point, you're more likely to get more out of life and do more for society if you're on that side than you are if you're being more cautious. But I don't think that necessarily applies to everyone. And I think if everyone does that, it's not necessarily it wouldn't be as good. I don't know. This is a really hard question.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
You mind if I say something really quick?
Okay, go for it.
Oh, well, yeah, we both kind of did the same thing there. But I'll go because I am talking. You would argue, just to clarify, that the two ends of the spectrum are fixed, but that the golden mean changes.
Who are you talking to?
You.
You.
Sure.
Well, because you said, like, if it's just you, the mean is more toward the rationist side, and if it's with a bunch of people, it's more toward the caution side. Cautious!
Oh.
Cautious! That's the word!
No, it's definitely Weiner.
Yeah, okay. I like Weiner a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess yeah, sure.
Okay. So here's what I'm thinking, is that presuming we are able to, everyone in the world follows this, or at least knows of this sort of spectrum, I think, and makes informed decisions based on this spectrum, I think that it would be most productive for the golden mean, meaning the place that indicates where most people are heading as far as their decision on this most wonderfully named of spectrums. I think that it would be more productive for more people to go on the cautious end, because in that circumstance, they are trying to have the lightest negative footprint across, the whole world, but have the most profound positive footprint in their communities. And so if we were to presume that all the rest of the world was taking this decision simultaneously with us, affecting these changes in their lives, then I think that it would be the amount of good in the world would, even if it didn't increase overall, it would feel so much like it increased on a personal level, on a community level, just because we would have all these examples of people going out, being proactive, positive influences on the people around them very intentionally, instead of just having a few global actors all kind of sometimes having a really positive impact, but also having a lot of negative costs along with that. And so, I do genuinely think that the total amount of positive good would increase, but even just the sensation of having a community that cares about you, I think would be an incredible boon to our world as it is currently.
Yeah, I really like that. And I was going to refute your statement by saying, well, yeah, but what about right now when things suck and we need people to take risks? But I see what you're saying, that in a utopia of things are okay, just being nice to each other and making slightly wienerlicious, but nonetheless courageous decisions is probably the way to go.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking about the golden mean, right? Not the golden absolute. So there could
Very
still
true.
be those risk takers. It's just not the predominant.
Yeah. And it's true, never mind. Also, sorry to our audience, but when talking with such abstract terms, we're gonna like realize that two of us were saying the same thing halfway through, and I've just realized Noah and I were saying the same thing of, the mean changes based on circumstance, pretty much.
But in different ways. It's like if you saw the Mona Lisa painted from the back, you would have a totally different portrait. So
True.
you get to enjoy both.
Yeah.
Yay.
One thought I'll add to this is, I think the best possible option, if this can be an option, and we're talking about society again, even though we totally said we weren't going to, but the best possible option is for there to be a variety. Because if everyone is always taking the same amount of risk, then you're going to be either, you're never going to have people that are willing to take risks that forward society, and you're also, either that or on the flip side, you're never going to have that stable, like the thing Josh was talking about. So I think a combination, a spectrum of means for each individual person is the best. I don't know if I worded that right. Does that make any sense?
So you're talking about modern society? Or just the perfect society?
Like modern society. Any society. Okay. I think any society should be, unless, we already had everything figured out and had nowhere else to go, which would be horribly depressing. Then, yeah, I think a mixture is best. I think there's no way that you have a society that has all really a society full of rashes or a society full of wieners that would be the best.
Yeah,
we need a society full of wiener rashes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's why I think this can't really be applied to a society, is because if everyone is operating by the same mean, like nothing happens and you're kind of in the sort of world that 1984 and I don't know what other dystopian books, The Giver,
Brave New World,
A Brave New World, Divergent, all those books, that's kind of what they operate on.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Good talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Wow. I'm just, still recovering. But yeah, okay. Well, thanks for that really deep, profound question. Andrew, you are no longer the little brother. You are now rechristened the philosopher brother.
Well,
or
awesome.
Maybe the Wiener Brash brother.
Wiener
Rash brother also works.
Hopefully my questions will only get better. My Biggle questions. But,
yep.
Of course we have to have some sort of lighthearted part, so we've got to have silly little and middle questions still.
100%.
Yes.
Okay, well, time to roll the credits. This podcast is created by the three of us, written by none of us, and edited and produced by me, Joshua. Hopefully it's also listened to and enjoyed by you, but no pressure, hey? So join us next time as we unravel more of the world's big questions, or maybe just get tangled up in them. We'll see how things go when we get there. And if you have any questions, suggestions, or ideas on how we could make this podcast better, send us a message at littlemiddelbiggle@outlook.com. Why do I even still have that in the show notes? Nobody ever emails that.
I think we should add, or comments on our answers. If you disagree with us,
yes,
tell us.
Also, we're on YouTube now. So you can comment on the YouTube videos.
Cool.
The YouTube search engine requires you, because we are so just titanically unpopular. It requires searchers to search my personal YouTube channel, which is where they all get uploaded, which is the Mega Nachos, because that sounded like a great idea for a username when I was in 7th grade.
That
Still sounds like a great idea for the username.
Great, I'm glad you guys think so. So you can search for that, and then there's a playlist of all the videos up there. Yep. Anyway, love, thanks, and T-Rex hugs from all of us. We couldn't have done this without you. Say bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Awesome.
I almost hung up
Well
when I
done.
said bye, and that would